Okay, I'd like to announce the North Dakota Department of Emergency Services panel discussion. We have Cody Schultz, Dan Donlin, Amy Anton, Justin Messner, Debbie Lacombe, Sean Johnson, and we also got the General Doorman here today, and Eric Jensen. We'd like the General just to say a few words for the conference. Okay. Would you mind coming up?
Sure. And I assure you it'll be more than a few. Hey, thanks. I kind of crashed the party. I knew this was going on. I was supposed to be out of town. They didn't ask me to be on the panel, but that's okay, because the smart guys are on the panel. I'm just the good-looking one. But I do want to sit in for a while, but I just want to share a few thoughts with you guys up front. I think you all know, I think it's been since 2005. The Adjutant General has also been the Director of Emergency Services for the state of North Dakota. There's a long story of why that happened. I can also assure you that Adjutants General get no particular training in how to do emergency management. We usually learn by having an emergency. And I've had my one. I was hoping for a flood. I didn't get a flood. I got something else. Thanks, Joel. I don't say the word out loud anymore, so I just blame people like Joel Rosberg. Oh, who, by the way, if you don't like the job I'm doing, Joel's the one that brought me into the National Guard. So blame him for that one, too. But just really wanted to take a moment to thank everybody in the room for what they do. Emergency management, you guys are often behind the scene. I mean, for my team up here, too. A lot of times when something big is happening, it's the incident commander, it's the unified command team, but it's the emergency managers at the state and local level that are behind the scenes getting things done to protect people. So I applaud you for that. I thank you for that. I wanted the opportunity just to get up in front of you today to remind everybody that I am, in fact, the Director of Emergency Services for the state, and that it's important that we have a good relationship. We have the old saying in the military that you don't want to meet for the first time on the battlefield. Well, you don't want to meet for the first time at the scene of a disaster. And the more we can do to partner, the better we can communicate, get to know one another, to build that trust, the more effective we're going to be for the state of North Dakota. So what am I thinking about right now? My job is to think big thoughts, and then these guys try to figure out how to get them done. But some of my big thoughts right now, we're about to go into a strategic planning process for the department. And one of the things I'm asking the team to look at is what does it take, and can North Dakota be the most resilient state in the nation? And this hit me one day when somebody from California was being interviewed, and they were just talking about how they're tired of being scared. And if you think about it, in California, if the fire doesn't get you, once the ground cover is gone, the mudslide might get you the next year. If the mudslide doesn't get you the next year, then the earthquake might get you the year after that. When I look at North Dakota, what has happened up in Grand Forks from the '97 flood, what we're working on now in Fargo and Minot and other communities, we might be in a position to be the most resilient state in the Union. But to do that, first we got to crunch some numbers. We got to work with our partners at the Water Commission, and I'd submit we got to work with all our partners in the room here to make sure that we put the programs and the processes in place so that we can, with a straight face, say we are the most resilient state in the Union, and we're not going to get that done without everybody coming together to work on that. Other thing that's on my mind for next legislative session, and right now I'm empowering you all to lobby on my behalf. We need a disaster relief fund. And you might know that we do have a disaster relief fund, but the reality is it's not accessible by my department in times of disaster. It's only there to reimburse loans I take out with the Bank of North Dakota. But I think in your jurisdictions, if you didn't have a rainy day fund when bad things happen, they would probably question your competence to lead that local government. And my argument on a state disaster relief fund that I can access in a timely manner so that we don't have to make hard decisions like should we put helicopters up to put a fire out because we don't have any money. We should have that money available. Do we need to deploy some reserve asset to help out in the local area? That shouldn't be a question about whether the money is available or not, whether the authority is there. We should be able to launch right away. At least that's my opinion. So we're going to work on that. Next legislative session. What else I got on my list here? Oh, I see drones in the background there. That's one thing we're working on too. I think there is an expectation in this day and age that when bad things happen, we can get eyes on very, very quickly. And we're working right now to figure out where all our unmanned aerial system assets are in the state, whether they're with the sheriff, a police department, emergency management, whoever may own them and whoever may operate them, civil air patrols, getting UAV teams up and trained around the state. But we can help each other out much quicker if we have eyes on. And if at the state level, we don't want to get in your knickers, but it's sure nice to know what's going on so that the moment you're called, we're ready to move. And one thing that'll help do that is some situational awareness. The other thing, back to communication and building the team, Cody and I have talked quite a bit, but when these little problems, there may not be little in your community, but when these problems pop up that more than likely won't require a state response, but you never know, I want to get a liaison officer out to wherever the problem is right away. Not to get in your way, but just to be prepared. In some cases, we had some experiences last year where if nothing else, if a local politician decides it's time to engage with the governor on what's going on in the small community, if we already know what's going on, maybe we can tamp that down before it is yet another distraction to a local emergency manager trying to get their job done. So anyway, those are some of the things on my list. The last thing I want to do is share with you a training opportunity. Next summer, August 3rd to the 6th of 2020, we're going to conduct an exercise called Vigilant Guard. These are national exercises. The United States Northern Command, based out of Colorado Springs, and the National Guard Bureau put on 4 of these a year. The primary focus is to train the military, and more specifically the National Guard, but the active duty plays in many of these exercises, to provide support to civil authorities in time of disaster. With that said, there are opportunities for local jurisdictions to participate in the exercise. I think Sean's going to be sending out a SurveyMonkey. It's already out, so check your email. But if there are training objectives that you would like to exercise in this type of environment, please get that information back to Sean, or I believe Larry is the other point of contact. We'll try to work you in the exercise. Now, I don't have money that can flow to support your local exercise, but I think you could plug in a very cost-effective manner to participate in this exercise. And again, provides us an opportunity to work the whole team, from the federal level, the state level, to the local level, the nonprofit, the non-government organizations, private entities, but to work that whole team, because you all know when things get really, really bad, that whole team has to come together. So this is an opportunity next summer to work on that. And I didn't do that total justice, but Sean is wicked smart on it, so talk to Sean if you have any questions about that. And with that, I think I'll yield. I told you it wouldn't be a few words. I didn't lie. But I'm going to sit on the panel for a little while here, and if you have any questions of me specifically, I'd be more than happy to address them. So thank you.
Thank you, General Dorman. Now I'm going to turn it over to Brenda Bossler, and she's going to let the panel run their presentations.
Thank you, Lori. So we're excited to try a new format with you this year in terms of communicating what's going on at DES. We hope this will be a more two-way communication than some of our presentations have been in the past. But we are going to start with some very brief updates from each of our section chiefs on what's new and what's happening at DES. Then we'll move into questions that some of you have submitted to us by email prior to the conference. And then we will open up for any questions from the floor. So I am going to move the slides ahead here and start with our response section chief. Amy?
Okay, good afternoon. There's just a few things I want to update you guys on. I've talked about this in the past with our quarterly conference calls with the emergency managers, but about a year and a half ago or so, the governor had an initiative that he put forth where he wanted us as state agencies to look at how we can unify hazardous materials spill and reporting within the state. So we initially put together a work group, Department of Emergency Services, we own a bit of hazmat, Department of Health, which is now the Department of Environmental Quality, owns a piece of it, Oil and Gas does, as well as the Department of Agriculture. So we formed a small work group to start at least looking at what are the responsibilities and authorities of all the different agencies and try and consolidate that all into one document. So things that were in state law, federal law, or administrative code for the different agencies. So one of the other things we looked at is all the different reporting forms that the agencies have. Health Department has their environmental incident report, Oil and Gas has their spill report, and we have one as well. So we looked at all those different reports and looked at the information that we gather as agencies in order to do what we need to do in response to that, whether it's notifications or cleanup and those types of things. And then we also looked at the existing databases that the agencies use to track hazmat spill and release information and the existing notification processes that everyone had. And then finally, we looked at what type of a reporting system capability or functionality do we need in one unified system. So like I said, we sat down as a group, we put all that down in paper, kind of brainstormed some things. We came up with a draft unified form, reporting form, so to speak. The idea of a centralized website where industry is directed or those that need information to go to one centralized website where that information is there. There'd be one single phone number that they can call to report spills and those types of things. So we gathered all that stuff, but we didn't have the funding. The funding didn't come with the governor's initiative. So it's been tabled for about a year, and we were waiting funding, and we have identified HMEP grant dollars that we're going to utilize for this project. So the first week of September, we're planning to issue a request for proposal, an RFP, for a system for both online hazmat reporting as well as Tier 2 system reporting. Our current Tier 2 system, excuse me, there's some concern with it. We've been having problems with it locking up and that sort of thing. So we're concerned that it'll eventually render itself unusable. So we're going to take the opportunity to look at both systems, something that can do both, have a more of an intuitive process within there. So depending on the answer to a question, if it got into a waterway or something like that, it would automatically generate email notifications to the appropriate agencies that need that information and those types of things. So we want something that's web-based, user-friendly, very customizable for our future needs, those types of things. Something that has an interactive GIS capability where we can run reports and those types of things. So we're excited to move forward with this. So again, the next step is to get that RFP out the door and see which vendors come back with that. So obviously, as part of this, we're going to have to expand the group and involve other stakeholders. Oh, sorry. Sorry, there you go. Expand our stakeholder group, engage additional agencies, industry partners, and so on and so forth to move forward to that. And then obviously there's going to be a big outreach education strategy that we're going to have to develop to roll this out to industry and to our stakeholders. So we're excited about that. The next thing I wanted to mention is Jeff and Randy from our office have been working on updating the LEPC handbook. The updated version we expect to have on our website the first week of September as well. So we did have a few emergency managers from Sergeant Stutzman and Ward counties that did provide some input on that. So we appreciate your involvement in the updates to that. So most of it, there's a lot of verbiage type cleanup, material safety data sheets. We changed those to the safety data sheets. We inadvertently, there was a section on LEPC membership, guidance, and responsibilities that was left off the last one, so that's back now in there. And then we also updated some of the CERC information since we've got some new partners that have been added to our State Emergency Commission since then. Lastly, I just wanted to mention there's a new feature within WebEOC that may be of interest to some of you. So now on the significant events board, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little email button there. So if you find an entry that you want to forward on to, first responders or elected officials or whoever it may be, you can go ahead and click on that email button, and it'll automatically generate an email that you can then forward and send to whoever it is that you may need to send it to. So you could copy and paste before. That was the only way you were able to do it, but now we've got that email function within there that hopefully will make that a little bit easier and will be something that you guys will benefit you. So that's all I have for updates.
Thanks, Amy. And I'm going to back up a little bit because I let the slides do the thinking for me. And I don't think that Cody and Dan had any slides in the presentation, so I want to turn it over first to Cody, and then we'll bring Dan up for any comments. Thank you, Cody.
So good afternoon, everyone. Just want to start with gratitude and say thank you to the planning committee in this group and my staff that helped put this together. Thanks to Lori. I know you stepped in on short notice into that position. You've done a great job, so appreciate you guys putting this together and attending. I'm going to stay really short, guys, and open it up so we have as much time as we can for questions. But want to kind of look at it in a year-end review and some things that we've got upcoming for the next year. So. Coming on last conference, I was about 8-9 months in the job, no legislative sessions under my belt in this position. So start with legislative session. I think we had a very positive session from a funding perspective. During the 17 biennium, we had some challenges in our operating funds. We were very successful, I think, in making the case to legislators in terms of our resource requirements. So we're very positive going into this session that we have the resources to do many of the things that the general laid out and some other things as well. So looking at the first year, I wanted to focus on, I looked at 3 C's because 3 is as many things as I can remember at one time. But culture, character, and communications were the 3 things that I really wanted to make sure that we had in line and enhanced. Culture, everything flows from culture, guys. Wanted to make sure we had a culture of servant leadership, of partnerships, and just being better today than we were yesterday. My hope is that with some of the initiatives that we put forth with the quarterly calls and webinars, that enhanced our communication as well. Communication being one of the other things that really wanted to focus on. And I think Brenda mentioned it as well. I very much appreciate you guys stepping up. I think a lot of times when communication came from our agency to you guys, it was almost like a lecture in a lecture hall. We want two-way communication. Want to know what's happening in the field, what you guys expect from us, what you want from us. So thank you guys for enhancing that as well. And character, as always, we just want to make sure we always act with integrity, and this staff here is incredible at that. I'm proud of them for what they do. We just want to make sure that we maintain and enhance that as well. So a couple things we looked at in the last year, and I think some of these we may have touched on in some of the webinars and conference calls. A few tweaks in terms of organizational structure and processes. We did rename our grants and training section to preparedness. Our operations section we now refer to as response to fit in a little better with some of the ICS NIMS nomenclature, as well as some of our planning documents as well. We also renamed our public information to strategic communications, and that's more than just a name. We truly want to enhance what we do from a communications perspective to be more holistic, involved with legislative planning, going to be very involved in the upcoming strategic planning that we're doing, and also looking at communications with internal and external stakeholders and all the different mediums we use to do that. So we've introduced him by email, but Eric, and he'll be up here to talk to you a little bit, Eric Jensen, we're very happy to have him on. He comes with a lot of experience. He was in the Guard Public Affairs shop for many years, and we're really excited to have him on board. Some other things we did over the last year, real focus on technology, but not just for technology's sake. We have to make sure, and I preach this to our IT guys all the time, is the technology has to serve the people and not the other way around. So we're looking to see how we can engage some of these things, everything from UAS to GIS to video in our communications efforts. Those things are very important to us. They're tactical tools, but they fit into the big strategic umbrella as well. So that's just a real short version of the last year, and very quickly in terms of what's upcoming, and General Dorman touched on some of this as well. We're looking at some evolution and revolution. Evolutionary, we want to just keep being better today than we were yesterday, using these technological tools to the best of our ability. One thing that we are going to be looking at and engaging you guys for some feedback on is within the umbrella of our state emergency operations plan, we have a number of different mission area plans. We have response, we have mitigation, we have recovery. One thing that we've never had as a state is a prevention and protection plan. Probably going to be relatively law enforcement heavy, but we want your input on how that fits into what you guys do as emergency managers, and how we make that, that planning effort and that document something that's actionable. So stay tuned for that in the upcoming year. Want to continue to build on some of the emergency management engagements we talked about, like the webinar conference calls, making sure. Generally what I'll do is after we do those, I'll pick up the phone and try to call 2 or 3 of you within a couple weeks of that and get your feedback. I want to make sure that what we're doing creates value for the relationship and for what you guys are doing in the field. So any feedback you have on that in terms of content, tone, technology, want to hear it. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me either. On the revolutionary thing, some of the moonshots that the General was talking about, absolutely trying to get our minds wrapped around how do we make North Dakota the most resilient state in the nation. I think it's doable. How we operationalize that, how do we measure it? What are the metrics? And who else in state, local, and federal government do we need, and all of you in this room, definitely, we need your feedback and thoughts on how to do that. But I agree that this is something that's achievable. It really is, with some focus and some resources. So we're really excited about that. Also the effort on the disaster relief fund, as the General mentioned, it's not a relief fund, it is a matching fund for presidential disasters, and we would certainly like some access to help in response areas if we can. Another thing we're going to be looking at, we've got a small work group put together, re-looking at the IMAT, EMST concept in terms of what they do, when they deploy, are they in-state, out-of-state, are we using task books, and those kind of things. So we're going to put together a work group. We're going to want some of you guys' input on that as well. What else? We've mentioned the strategic plan. We've got a really robust plan. We're going to bring on a contractor to help us with some of the outreach. I want to make certain that the feedback we're getting from the field, from our stakeholders, is honest, unvarnished, and sometimes if we have our own staff doing that outreach, we're not always getting the full picture. So we're going to bring some help on with that as well. Want holistic, total, unvarnished feedback in terms of what we're doing, how we're doing, and what you want us to do in the future. So we're very excited about that as well. With that, I'll stop there and leave as much time for questions as we can.
Your Director of Homeland Security. Thank you, Cody. And for those of you that maybe haven't had the opportunity to meet in person, our new Director of State Radio, take a good look and give your attention to Dan Donlin.
Nope, go back, maybe. Okay, I'm screwing. Don't touch. All right, I'm not going to touch. Thank you. When Cody mentioned he was going to be short, I thought he was talking about me, and then I realized that he really wasn't. And Brenda says all we have to talk about was what's new. Well, that's me, so I'm new. So if you have any questions, it'd be a good time to ask. I started July 8th, so I just counted it out, and I'm in my 7th week of experience, so in that regard. But I come from a background of law enforcement. If you don't know, I worked at the Bismarck Police Department for 30 years, and the last 5.5 years was as the chief of police there. And then I retired, and then worked at DOT in the safety division for Vision Zero. And 11 months later, I am in this spot. So now everybody that knows me says 3 jobs in 1 year, what's going on? So hopefully this one sticks a little bit. But that does make me a little suspicious why the general's hanging out, because I am on probation. So a little suspicious being that cop nature that he might be watching. But for me, anybody that knows me, I am a completely open, transparent person, and that is exactly how I intend to operate at State Radio as a partnership with everyone to serve our public safety communities around the state, but also just to serve the state as a whole. And I'm going to make transparency and partnerships a priority as much as I can. And I want to get out to each county, visit with the 911 coordinators, use the emergency managers, sheriffs, chiefs, whoever, EMS, whoever we need to meet with, because I want to face-to-face get to know people as well, if I'm here more than 6 months, hopefully. They asked maybe just a little bit about Siren, and as far as I'm going right now in 7 weeks of experience, where as a chief I could delegate all this Siren stuff to somebody else, go tell us what's going on. Now I have to learn it. So this is absolutely brief. You really get your updates on the SIAC website, on the North Dakota webpage, but on the SIAC website is where you're going to get your best info as far as updates. But Phase 1, Group 1 is moving forward. And those entities that are doing that, they're going to install the core in Bismarck and the other core in Fargo. But Grand Forks, PSAP, Minot Central Dispatch, Stutzman County Communications Center, Barnes County Dispatch, Richland County 911 are the ones that are moving forward on that Phase 1. I've been asked the question at various meetings, where's State Radio's involvement in this? When are we going to be going? And from what I've been told, we're Phase 1, Group 2, so we're right behind. And I know Bismarck, Burley, CENTCOM is going to be in that Group 2 as well. One of the reasons, and I had to write this down because I am not the technical guy, but all 45 state towers, state-owned towers, have to be physically touched in order to patch over the VHF radio into the core prior to State Radio coming on. So all that is now moving forward and going to be occurring. As far as involvement, my intent is to get the State Radio staff as much as possible, but certainly the supervisors out in public, out to meetings, involved, and with that, Siren has various work groups that are out there working on standards and things. And I've got every supervisor assigned to at least one, or at least two, some 3 of those work groups, as well as Jenny Curtis. If you've known her, she got married. It's Jenny Moeller now, in case you see an email. Don't delete it and go back, find it, and oh, that's Jenny. But she's on there as well. So I want to get involvement into the partnerships that we're talking about here as well. I already mentioned the SIAC website would be the best place. As far as State Radio goes, one more thing on the Siren. I just ran into him. He said he was going to be out of town, but something happened and he's now here. But Chris Meyer from Motorola, he is out at the ECI booth out there. So if you do have technical Siren questions, projecting forward, things like that, when's it going to occur, you could get a hold of him and talk to him as well. State Radio, we are continuing to conduct our 25 county user group monthly calls to make sure that we're talking about any issues that we can work on together. Currently staffing, we are pretty short. staffed, and we're losing 2 on August 31st at the end of the month here. One is a new mother, priorities change, and night shift's a little difficult in that regard, so she's leaving. And another one has been here for 7 to 8 years, and again, it's the shift work that's kind of moving them on to a different position where they don't have to work the shift work. So we are in the process of hiring, and as of September 1st, we're going to have one that's just completed training. We're going to have technically 6 openings, but we have 2 hires coming on. One for sure, September 11th, and we're hoping the next one comes on within a week after that. We're still working on that. And then we will be posting another job announcement out to try to fill these remaining 4 positions. Right now, training the staff's capacity to train is a little challenged as well to bring that many in. So if you know people that would be interested in a good job for a good mission and a good reason, send them our way. We will be consulting with our partners. When I came into this job, I was briefed up on something about a fee analysis and increased fees that occurred with the state. I wasn't sure what all happened with that, but I've been briefed up. But we will be looking at the next biennium of 2021 to 2023 to analyze those costs and those fees. But this is going to be done much earlier this time, and there's going to be transparency involved and communication with everybody involved. And we're going to look at starting that analysis probably around February, so early next year, early 2020, and then the decisions will be out on that regard. We'll put the info out by May, or at least by the end of May, so there's plenty of time for budgeting and whatnot. Other than what's been out there, I don't see too many changes beyond what you've already seen and been made aware of. Public outreach, our dispatch, again, we are sending our supervisors out to your county, your local LEPC meetings when invited. So please invite us to come to your LEPC meeting. I know the first one I got to do was in Sargent County. Mike Link was flying the plane. I wasn't sure if I was still going to have a job by the time we got back or not, but he got us there and back. But it was a great opportunity, and they do a good job presenting. And again, that's going to be some outreach. So again, we can put names to voices, faces to voices over the radio, get the supervisors, the staff talking with you, as well as 911 coordinators and the emergency responders, the responders that are out there. And that's vital. That's important to create those relationships. And they do a presentation that does a good overview of their operations and how things work and why certain groups are being paged and jurisdictional issues and mapping and all that stuff they talk about. So we are very excited to get out there and do that, and please let us know if you'd like us to come out. Lastly, I have met some of you, and I look forward to meeting hopefully all of you. And throughout the conference, I'm going to be here, and please come up and introduce yourself with where you're from, and I'd love a business card, and I have some to hand out too, so we can start this relationship off right. And don't believe anything former Colonel Prochniak says about me. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And at this point, I'm going to give it to Justin Messner, and then we're going to just go ahead and you guys follow suit and move on down the line with your presentations, and then we'll move into questions as we finish up. Okay. So I don't know where we're at on the slide here, Justin.
I was watching. I gotta leave that. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, all right.
And, oh, I had added another slide earlier, but it must not have made it into this final PowerPoint. Afternoon, everybody. I'll start that out right. The one slide I was going to add was the fact that just yesterday, the Notice of Funding Opportunity for the 2019 Pre-Disaster Mitigation and Flood Mitigation Assistance Programs was just posted to grants.gov. So with that, it's a new round, a new year of grant funding that will be made available nationally. We've been using these programs quite a bit in the last few years because we haven't had a lot of big disaster events or disaster events that would have given us a lot of hazard mitigation dollars to play with. So we've been kind of reliant on these national grant programs, which are, like they sound, nationally competitive, but we've been doing very well with them. This last year, we had 23 applications that were submitted, and we got 19 of them selected under PDM. And then on FMA, we had 3 projects that were submitted and 2 were selected. The FMA is a little bit harder to get into because it's all flood projects that have to deal with flood-insured properties. So just those 2 criteria automatically kind of reduce the amount of projects that we're going to be able to submit underneath that. But with that, Notice of Funding Opportunity is letting us all know that underneath the 2019 pre-disaster mitigation, there's going to be $250 million available nationally. That's Fed share. And then on the FMA side, it's going to be $160 million available nationally, and that's Fed share again. Application period will be from September 30th of this year through January 31st of 2020, with selections hopefully made available by FEMA by that next June and then funded that summer. So we will be sending out an email to everybody this next week, just letting you guys all know that about the programs. We'll send out the fact sheets for them, and then if anybody has any projects that they're interested in doing, from mitigation plan updates or acquisitions, flood walls, generators, you guys name it, we'll work with you guys to try and get applications done. The other thing I wanted to mention on that was that I know those programs, any of these programs, are kind of daunting at first. There's a lot of paperwork and a lot of administrative tasks that go along with it, but I think the reason we've been doing so good with them recently is because we've been trying our best to work with you guys and help out as much as we can, from doing the benefit cost analysis for you, to helping you guys with wording in the applications and making sure that you have everything as complete as possible. If you guys have anything that you're interested in looking at, or you just have questions about the programs, please get in touch with us. We'll do our best to get you down the right paths, make sure you guys get the right documentation pulled together, and then we'll help you guys get as strong of an application submitted as we can. The other thing I was going to talk about was the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, BRIC. You guys have been looking at this slide for the last like 10 minutes. I'm sure you guys have already read it by now. But with that, the PDM program that I was just talking about is actually, this is the last year. The 2019 is the last year that they're going to have pre-disaster mitigation, is what it's called. It's going to be created or transformed into BRIC, the Building Resilient Infrastructures and Community Program. This is going to be starting just in 2020, and I'm assuming it'll be around the same time frame, around that September, October time frame, that it'll open up again. But with that, the program is created through the Disaster Recovery Reform Act, which was passed in, I believe it was October of last year. And one of the nice things about this is that just in terms of a program, it's doing about the exact same thing as pre-disaster mitigation, except it's going to be a little bit more focused on infrastructure projects, and it's going to have a whole lot more money. So as you can see here, the annual budget will be based on 6% of the 6-month costs of all disasters across the nation. So it's going to be tied to, it's a sliding scale, but it's going to be tied to how many disasters the nation has in any given year and how big those disasters were, versus having to wait for appropriations, which is how our PDM program used to be previously. So, and on general, that means we're going to end up having more money available for those programs as well. You know, one of the biggest things about, I think the reason why we ended up going this route is that they came out with a couple of studies in the last few years. The National Institute of Building Sciences had done a study on mitigation programs like what we deal with. They determined that for every dollar that you put into mitigation, you save on average $6 in the long run in terms of disaster recovery and response. The Pew study actually just came out with a follow-up, and they determined that in North Dakota specifically, you actually save $6.54 per dollar that you put into mitigation. So I think in that mindset, it only makes sense that people are going to want to change their thought processes, not just respond to and recover from disasters, but try to prevent them altogether. I think that's why there's going to hopefully be some more money in that regard moving forward. Hopefully we can use it to make our state as resilient as possible, sir. And as far as that, the program just got done with its national comment period. That ended in mid-July. We put together our comments. We gave them to FEMA, gave them to NEMA, and then I also just gave them to the FEMA Region 8 folks as well, because apparently the regions are still giving comments on the program. So hopefully there will be a little bit more tweaks to see how things play out. But either way, that program will be rolled out this next year, and we look forward to working with you all on it. That's everything I had. I wanted to keep it short.
Okay, so a couple of new things that we weren't able to brief you back in July on the preparedness section is we did have this year a new opportunity to apply for a nonprofit security grant program here in the state of North Dakota. We had 6 applications for that grant program, and 3 of those 6 are going to be receiving awards. We haven't actually received the federal award on this one yet, but Hettinger Lutheran Church, Lisbon Area Health Services, and Napoleon Care Center were successful in getting their nonprofit grants approved this year. So we're hoping next year when this grant comes out that there are more nonprofits that apply. We were eligible for up to $100,000 here in the state of North Dakota, and unfortunately we didn't have enough grant applications to reach our 100,000 that met the criteria that they needed to get approved in the nationwide. So yeah, encourage your nonprofits next year to apply for this grant. It's a good opportunity for those nonprofits that they usually don't have. The other opportunity that sort of arose was the 911 grant program. And I think Jerry Berquist would probably be more of an expert on what's going on with this grant. But originally, this grant was applied for by the North Dakota Association of Counties. And it was determined by the federal agencies that run this grant that they could not be an eligible applicant. And so we were asked to step in and be the eligible applicant for this grant. We did get an award here just a couple weeks ago. It's going to be $1,473,805. It is a 60-40 grant. We are going to sub-grant that to the Association of Counties so that they can implement the projects. The program manager is Jason Horning over at the Association of County, and it has 3 projects within it. The Next Gen 911 GIS, Geographic Information Systems project, Internet Protocol IP aggregation for originating service providers, and curriculum development and training for telecommunicators. So those are some projects that they'll be working on over the next 3 years. It is a 3-year grant. It's actually a little less than 3 because the grant came out a little late. The other item that I had in here was that we did put out an RFI for a new training software. Right now, your ability to register for classes with the change in our web format is a little difficult. And so, and our ability to track who's doing training, we're using an access format right now. So it's hard to pull some of the data out that we need when we need it. And so we did put out an RFI for a new management system for our training. The RFIs are going to be due back, I believe, September 9th, and then we'll see what costs those are and make a decision from there whether we're going to go out for RFP or not on that. So we're hoping that we get some good feedback, some good RFI information back so that we can actually go out for RFP to help Brenda and Larry track training a little bit better and to be able to pull some of those information we need out of there for reporting purposes and other things that we use it for. So that's what I had.
Good afternoon, everybody. Excited to be here, our first conference with a true designated planning section. Proud to have been selected to lead that, but nothing without a great team, and that team would be, of course, Kathleen Donahue, Eric Upton. They're currently back at the office doing what planners do. I'm sure they'll let me know what that is when I see them again, but they will be here for sure tomorrow. Everything else. One other thing that we're looking at, we're exploring the opportunity to add a temporary mitigation plan reviewer to help really help Kathleen out a lot with those local plans, but us also kind of monitor our state plan a little bit and hopefully set that up for pretty much expediting the updates as we go forward with our state plans. Those are some of the things that we've been kicking around, Justin and I, and talking through some of that. Overall, we're 3, maybe 4 people. If we select this person, we're a pretty lean, mean team. So what that means to you all is 110%, we're going to be very customer focused, but you're probably going to see all of us involved in some way in every little thing that we do. And that's great because everybody on this team brings a great perspective that the others may not bring to that. So the bottom line is the intent of this section was to get rid of the stovepipes in our planning, and therefore I'm not going to have a stovepiped approach to a lot of the things that we do. We'll bring together the right team, and that includes also bringing you in on a lot of feedback, such as the strategic plan, which I think is my second bullet down there. Basically, a lot of that's been talked to by both the DES director and the Homeland Security director. I won't get too much further in there other than to say I think I pulled out what the vision statement is going to be, which is the most resilient state in the nation, or something that's going to look something like that, it sounds like. One thing, something I will add is we are getting into our state thyra season right now. Also, we do it annually. Actually, this will be the last thyra we got to do on an annual basis. We'll go into a 3-year cycle after this. But a lot of that is going to help lay the foundation for the strategic plan in addition to some of that contractor-supported outreach that you're seeing. The key word is contractor-supported. The 3-person team that we have at DES is still going to take the bulk of actually coordinating, getting the strategic plan completed. We're looking at, I think, Cody and I, we talked about beginning or end of March sometime. We're at least looking at hopefully a rough draft to get that going. So you'll see some outreach relatively soon once we get some contractor aboard. You see on there the LEAP 2020 initiative. When we first stood this team up, the new section, I did some outreach to several of you across the state. And I said, you know, give me a feel. What kind of things do you need from a planning section at a state level that could really help you out, help you do your jobs? There was a lot of different ideas, but the one underlying theme that came back was can we please take a look at and consider a kind of a standardized format to LEAPs. In the past, this has been floated. As more discussions happened on it over time and as the idea got refined, I think this is something that we can definitely do in partnership with the association if there's a willingness of the association to pursue that. It sounds to be, as we flush this out some more, it was very clear you're not looking for something that you can just fill in the blank. That's something we can't support, or copy, paste, find, replace. But you're definitely looking for something that you can go to your next jurisdiction over and pull their LEAP and be able, in the middle of a large event, and be able to know kind of where their concept of operations is, for example. So that's something that the association is willing. We're willing to support that effort. What I would see this is probably have to be a voluntary thing. I don't think we'd ever want to make this an EMPG requirement, for example. I wouldn't necessarily endorse that myself. But if you're, again, that's something we're willing to support. You see recovery under there too. And by the way, a lot of the questions that you submitted were things that I kind of planned to address anyway, so this will kind of address that. A lot of you sat in the class today. A lot of you have been through this before. You've seen the fact that recovery starts alongside of response. A lot of opportunity here in response or recovery planning where we could meld that into a LEAP 2020 approach. At the state level, when we do go in and update our MAPs, or missionary operations plans, which you'll see in a second, we're probably going to tackle both those together anyways. Because of those, the missionaries that become active in both, or excuse me, the core capabilities that become active in both those mission areas are pretty much mutually supporting, number one, and number two, they're happening pretty much at the same time. So looking forward to that if that's something you're willing to do. The thyra update. Last night I did send out the second set of tools to address the prevention, protection, and mitigation area core capabilities. The intent of that email was so you also had basically the instructions you need to follow long-term going into this. That's why it's got the graphics. It's a little bit longer than a normal email would be, understood. If you don't want to go through all that, that's fine. You know, file it, because I do plan to set up some webinars in the next few weeks to also go through that for those of you who learn better that way. Either way, we'll also record that. But the key is, takeaway is the design is very similar to what you saw for the cross-cutting response and recovery mission area reporting tools. In fact, that was basically what was used to build it out. There's going to be a lot less metric estimation that you're going to have to do with this. There's still metrics involved. They're going to be a lot simpler. And a lot of it is going to be pretty straightforward. You probably already know the answers to them when you look at the questions being asked. The technical assistance plan that we're going to be looking at, of course, we have the informal ongoing stuff every day, all day. That's our regional coordinators. Reach out to them if you have questions on anything. They're answering a lot of them right at their level, taking care of business, and I appreciate that. They'll loop me in as needed. One thing that was kind of asked for, and it's actually been bouncing around in my head a little bit, so I don't know if you've been thinking along the same lines or what. I don't know who should be more scared, but the web-based Q&A, something that you can go out and access and see what are the latest questions, see the answers to those questions. We just got to figure out the right way to plug that into our IT structure is the key thing. Once we do that, that's the intent, is to have something real time. I do not want to get into the business of emailing things out, because you're probably going to, there's always a chance you're going to be looking at the second or third issue back of that Q&A. So on the formal side, I mentioned the webinars. Definitely one to roll out the latest tool set for the new mission areas that we're asking you to get everything done, of course, by the end of June of 2020. And then if we need to do any pinpoint focus, whatever you need, we'll set something up. Offer is also on the table to do another round of regional face-to-face. We've already got Southeast region has already taken me up on that, early October. Looking at my next opportunities probably after January going forward, because again, I got to focus on our state there among some other things coming up here. But we'll definitely get those rolling and get you kind of get that face-to-face thing. We'll tailor it to your needs, and that's an invite only. I'm not going to try to invite myself to your quarterly meetings. Vigilant Guard was mentioned. The survey specifically, two things on that. If you can get it wrapped up, if you kind of have an idea, it doesn't need to be perfect answers, just good ones. Give us a good idea what you might want to do. If you can get that wrapped up by the end of this week, Friday, close of business, that would be appreciated. If that's not doable, that's not a problem. Just let me know before close of business on Friday that you intend to submit a survey response and about when you think you'll have it in, so we have an idea. It can't go too late, because we've got to take a lot of those responses and start building the concept out. We also have the Guards Project Officer who will be here tomorrow, Chief Warrant Officer 2 Scott Helfrey. He'll be at the DES table if you have any specific questions, not only on the mechanics of the exercise. He's a real wicked smart guy, by the way. And, well, he's a pilot, so, what can I say? And the other side of that, too, is he's also been out to other states and seen what's possible in those, and it's pretty exciting. We're not trying to replicate what's happening in other states, but there's some really cool things that have been done. The last thing I'll get into the COP strategic review. It's kind of tied to the strategic planning effort. In fact, you see the strat plan up in that upper right corner, and you can kind of see how the strat plan and the THIRA really end up among anything, other things informing the state emergency operations plan. We have switched over the past couple of years towards a mission area oriented COP. In the past, COPs have been kind of associated in our minds with the response, with the base plan, with the response annexes, all that other stuff. With the national preparedness goal, which is also the state preparedness goal by executive order of the governor, we've gone to this format that you see up here. One missing piece that we're looking to wrap up is, of course, that prevention protection MAOP to address those core capabilities over time. But the other big thing that we're looking to do is, like this section was formed to synchronize planning across the agency and hopefully support synchronized planning effort across the state. We're looking to do a better job taking what we have and synchronizing that closer across mission areas, because they are mutually supporting in nature. Part of that is also driven by the mere fact that we're a small team. We got a lot of documents as it sits today. So we're looking at trying to find opportunities to make those more efficient. And if we're repeating things, why are we repeating them across several documents, as an example? And the other bottom line with that is, in emergency management, we talk the talk of multi-hazard, multi-threat planning. We need to walk the walk better, and we need to set the example at the state on how to do that. So that's part of it, is really walking that talk of multi-hazard planning. That's going to be part of that strategic review. I'm going to wrap up. Kathleen did ask me to mention there's a G318 mitigation course in Fargo, September 23 to 25. You can get with her details and the events page on our new website, which I'm sure Jensen will mention coming up here. But if you want, but looking for people to fill that out with a robust and diverse student base. So, pending questions, which I think will come at the end. Thank you. I'll be followed by Eric Jensen.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have no slides, so we should make the break. As Sean had mentioned, just a few weeks ago, we released the new website, or went live rather. If you notice, the URL is a little different. There's some settings on there, drop-down menus that make it a little easier to navigate. I wasn't going to mention it, but I'm glad that Sean brought it up. So please let us know your feedback on that, how you're able to find info through the new website, if it's been an improvement for you, and if things are working out. I also have another due out to you guys as far as the org chart, and I do promise that it's coming within a few weeks. If you notice in your booklet, we did get Cody and Dan into our studio, so have some good examples there of how we're going to photograph our Homeland Security and state radio staff, populate an org chart for you. The plan is to make it online and kind of interactive in the fact that you can access people's contact information, email addresses, job titles, phone numbers, that nature. So hopefully that's a useful tool for you as well. And Cody had kind of mentioned technology, how we plan on bringing a little more of that as far as products to deliver to you. If you notice the camera in the back of the room, I've been in video training for the last 9 days, so I'm going to try to put that to use and put together some presentations for you guys, send the links to, or we'll upload it to YouTube, and you can share that with your counterparts if they were not able to attend today. And also the quarterly webinars also will be put into some products that are shareable as well. One more thing that I just kind of wanted to touch on a little bit was social media. When I came in under this job June of this year, I knew that social media was going to be a part of it. I didn't know that 2 social media platforms were going to be a part of it. So been trying to populate ND Response and North Dakota Department of Emergency Services. And I just wanted to encourage you to lean on me as I'm sharing content out there and use it for your own social media sites. I know a lot of you as emergency managers, maybe you run your own sites or fall under the county, but hopefully I can provide some material to you that will help you share with your stakeholders and engage with your audiences. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.